I'm Lindsay, and this is my Catholic Witness. So my name is Lindsay. I have lived in California for probably the last 14, I think it's been 14 years since 2001. Live in Huntington Beach, just graduated from college. I went to Santa Clara University, and I am doing a year of mission work this coming year. I enjoying the beach. I love being outside, hiking, and spending time with my friends and family. My faith as a child, well, I grew up Catholic, received my baptism when I was younger and just a baby, and went through the sacraments. I would describe my faith as a child as my family's faith. It was something that we did together. We went to Mass every Sunday and went to catechism classes and prayed, said grace before meals, and kind of did all those things with the family. So I think it was something that I always associated with my family growing up. And it wasn't my own until a lot later in life, I think. But yeah, we'd always go to Mass, and we would always pray together. I remember saying the Our Father every night before I went to sleep. We'd have like a special prayer to pray for specific people in our family after the Our Father. And then during elementary school, I would go to a Bible study sometimes on Thursdays that our neighbors had brought all of the elementary school kids to their house. We had like a little Bible study. But yeah, I would associate it with kind of my family growing up. So I think my experience or my thoughts of God were kind of like that big old man with the beard and kind of like the mystical kind of thoughts about God. I remember just like hearing all the Bible stories as I would go to religious education classes, and I remember slowly learning about the Bible and going to Mass and starting to hear things and become familiar. And then I did go to a Bible study when I was in elementary school where we'd kind of go through some of the Bible stories at a very, maybe superficial level. But I think my thoughts of God were just, I don't know. I don't think there was a relationship until I got older. I think it was in high school. I went on a Steubenville retreat and heard just talks by people who are really challenging us to kind of enter into that relationship with God, which was something I had, experienced with people in my life. My mom has always been very devout and very invested in her faith and always has had a relationship with God. But for myself, the first time, I kind of questioned where I fit into all of that and kind of what that would require of me if I were to have a relationship with God. At different stages in my life, there have been people who have been had a large influence on my faith. When I was younger, there was a woman who I talked about going to a Bible study when I was younger on Thursdays after school. And this woman who hosted them with her husband, they were kind of always a light to all of us. They would come get us from school, and we'd walk over to their house, and there would be food, and we'd have some worship music playing, and then they would divide the boys upstairs, the girls downstairs, and they'd go through a story in the Bible. And I really looked up to her early on. This was like second, third grade, someone who just had a strong faith. And then in high school, I had a religion teacher who was very motherly towards us, but was also very open about the faith and made the faith very tangible to myself as a freshman in high school. And she had struggled with breast cancer and had come out of it, and I had just seen her struggle and her dependence on God. She really made that clear to us. So at that time, I really looked up to her. And then in college, I had a friend who was 2 years older and just really admired her faith and I was in a place in my life where I was kind of mediocre in my faith, kind of one foot in, one foot out, and she really challenged me, but also gave me a great witness, someone I aspired to be like, and someone I had hoped to become more like as I grew up. So I think all those three people, and then my mom, kind of as an undercurrent throughout my whole life, has been someone who I've really looked up to in matters of the faith and the relationship with God and everything. My most profound experience, I don't think it was the sacrament itself, I think it was the preparation, and then I think it was kind of the aftermath of what had happened. But through the sacrament of confirmation, I really felt like I was in a place. I had gone on that retreat where a relationship with God was kind of brought into my understanding for the first time, and I was kind of wrestling with, my personal relationship with God. And then I think it was around that time when I had my confirmation, and then started getting more involved in church. But I think through that sacrament, through the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and having the authority to use them and to call upon the Holy Spirit and trust that the Holy Spirit was with me throughout my life, especially growing up and going to college. And I was able to go off to college, and in times when, I was, maybe turning away from God or walking away or struggling with my faith, I had the gift of the Holy Spirit to call upon. And that was such an essential gift for me, kind of figuring out my relationship with God after that. Because being a sophomore and being confirmed, I still felt like I had questions and was growing in a lot of ways. But to have that gift and to be confirmed, I think gave me a lot of maturity looking back, maybe. I went off to college, and I kind of struggled to figure out my place, where I fit in and what I wanted to do on campus. And then I started going to a women's ministry. And then later would take over that ministry and start to lead it as a junior and senior in college. And looking back, I know the Holy Spirit was assisting me in that, kind of being unsure and having to then prepare kind of a night where women would sit around and we would talk about the faith. I knew that the Holy Spirit was kind of leading me and prompting me and giving me the courage to really do some of those things and be a leader on my campus, which looking back, it seems kind of crazy, but the Holy Spirit really gave me that courage to be a bold witness, I think. My vocation right now, I believe, I think I used to be afraid of the word vocation, and that God had given me one thing and I would be, forced into it, or I would be, if I didn't do this certain thing, then I would feel, unfulfilled or something. I don't know. Or God would make me be a sister or a nun, but I've come to learn, I think, through just falling in love with God, that His vocation for me is going to fulfill me and is going to complete me and is going to make me the truest version of myself. And that has allowed me the freedom to really openly discern where He might be calling me in terms of, if that's married life, religious life, or single life. I am 100% loving this season of being single. I do believe that God is giving me the most beautiful adventure and allowing me to serve and to go different places and to have that freedom to just go where He's calling me in a lot of different directions. The desires of my heart are pointing me towards married life and having a biological family, being able to have children, raising them in the faith. But I'm not 100% sure yet. That is not something that I'm set on. That's not something that I have confirmed through prayer. I'm really still open to where He's leading me. I am in a relationship, however, so we are taking that relationship very seriously and are intending to walk towards married life. So that is kind of in the back of our minds, and walking towards that vocation. But right now, I'm so happily just serving God in my single season. It was kind of December and January, kind of towards the end of my senior year of my undergraduate 4 years of college, and I was kind of thinking about what I was going to do coming out of college. And I was, at a lot of points, the fear of what was coming was really overwhelming to me. And I believed that God had kind of set out two paths before me, and one was maybe continuing my education, and the other was doing a year of mission and serving. I think there's a lot of noise that in the world. I think I was listening to a lot of different voices, not necessarily people, but I think just, what should you be doing? What can you do? Like so many different opinions, and the world can speak so loudly. So I think when I really sat down and I really turned off all the noise, I had to look at what it was that brought me the most life. And I was so consumed by fear about what God wanted me to do. And I went to confession, and the priest just told me very clearly that God probably doesn't have one thing he wants you to do. He probably, he just wants your joy. And he wants you to be so happy and so aflame with his love and so on fire. And he wants you to choose. And because he loves you, he's going to give you that choice. And I remember finding so much freedom in that there wasn't one path that he had before me, that if I didn't choose everything correctly, my life would be ruined, that because he loved me, he was giving me this choice that I could serve him in two different ways. And it gave me a lot of freedom. And I think coming to that realization was a really beautiful thing. And it was a turning point in my relationship with God too, recognizing that I don't need to be consumed by fear, but I should be led by peace and joy. I love all of the seasons in our liturgical calendar. I love all of our seasons of waiting. I love all of our seasons of anticipation. I think Lent in particular, so many people say like Lent is the hardest 40 days in our faith, but particularly I love Holy Week. I love all of the ways that our church really evokes those 3 days, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and then Easter Sunday. I love entering into those, entering into Holy Thursday and the Last Supper, and then Good Friday, where Jesus was crucified, going through that kind of that darkness and that emptiness and that despair. And then it really shows us and teaches us how, we can, be so low in despair and then be brought up and raised up and full of joy again. And I think that's the Christian life in a lot of ways. But entering into that and experiencing that week fully, I think is my favorite. My family, we go to all the services on Holy Thursday, Good Friday. I love the Easter Vigil too, but sometimes that can get very late. But I love seeing all of the people be brought into the church on Easter Vigil, seeing people being baptized and confirmed and receive their first communion. That's a beautiful thing for me to see. And then going to, obviously, Easter Mass on Sunday. And really taking pieces of each of those days, like the washing of the feet and recognizing our call to serve one another. And then Good Friday, just really thinking about the passion and reflecting on God's mercy. And then celebrating on Easter Sunday and recognizing that, in the Christian life, whenever there's a fast, there's a feast. And when we have to suffer, we get to celebrate because of, the resurrection of Jesus. We get to live and live abundantly. And so those 3 days really evoke that message. think a lot of people, especially as youth, a lot of young people, they think like, oh, I will start going to church later in life, or I want to have fun right now, or I want to, live fully and be in the world. A lot of people think that um, having a relationship with God or being Catholic will somehow wash away my own personal identity. But I think I can say this wholeheartedly. The past few years of really um, trying to live my life as an authentic Catholic witness in the world, I think I've become more fully myself in every way. And I think it was John Paul II at World Youth Day in Denver when he said to the young people to give their youth to Christ. Um, and that can seem a little scary for a lot of young people. I think for so many reasons, a lot of people want to, live their life and do what they want, and while they're young. But in trying to do that, I think I've become more fully Lindsay Faye, who she is, what she's about. I've come to know that more completely. Um, and the Catholic faith is home in that. Wherever I am, I studied abroad in Rome one semester in college, and there would be times where I'd be all alone in a city. I would travel somewhere, and I would wonder what to do or where to go, and I would just go to mass because it would be the same wherever I was, and I would feel so much at home in that, wherever I was or whatever I was doing, that I had a home in the church, in the Catholic Church, and I had people who loved me and supported me and wanted me to get to heaven and were challenging me to do so. And in this journey, becoming more fully alive and more fully myself because of my faith. There have been times where I've kind of tried thinking that I would understand who I was more fully if I, turned my back on God or walked away or tried to find that purpose. I think it was always in turning around and coming back to God that He would show me who I was, my purpose, my dignity, and so much sweetness, in God and in that relationship, and so much joy and peace. So this year, I'll be working with an organization called the Culture Project International. And the Culture Project is an initiative of young people set out to restore our culture through the experience of virtue. So we proclaim the messages of human dignity and sexual integrity, really inviting our culture, particularly our young culture, to become fully alive. We believe that the experience of virtue is humanizing, and we really want to invite other young people to understand and to live in a way that will bring them the most joy and the most happiness. And this mission will be the next year of my life. I will be living in community and relying completely on the sacraments and speaking to young people on these topics. So to learn more about it, the website is restoreculture.com.